Hi, welcome to Journey into Parenting. So I'm really excited to have Angie here today, and she does something really creative, which is that she runs stand-up comedy clubs for parents with young kids, which I think is a really awesome idea because when you become a mum, you're still you, and lots of baby groups can be like a little bit kind of mind-numbing. So having something that's like stimulating and exciting to do, where you can still have really lovely quality time with your kids, seems to be great. So yeah, Angie, I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about what inspired you to start Aftermirth.
Yeah, well, basically, I had a baby 2 years ago, and when we had this baby, we had to decide whose career was going to continue, because my partner's a bass player, I'm a comedian. They both happen in the evenings, at the weekends. We had to decide whose career was going to continue and succeed and flourish, and whose career was going to die. And obviously, thank you, patriarchy, it was decided that my career was going to die. And so when I was at baby groups and pregnancy groups and stuff, and everyone else was getting really upset about having like fat fingers, I was there in tears going, my career is over, I'll never work again. And I've been in comedy for 10 years, and that, it's kind of part of my identity. I've put a lot of hard work in. And like circus, you'll know, Nina, there's no kind of career trajectory that you can follow. There's no kind of like, oh, if you do this and you get there, then you get there. You just work as hard as you can and hope that you can get up that rope, don't you? Do you know what I mean? There's no kind of real kind of plan to it. You just have to try really hard, and it's a mixture of hard work and luck and being in the right place at the right time. And I just kind of felt like my life was over, to be honest with you. I was quite depressed. So yeah, I was being in these pregnancy groups, and people were worried about their fat fingers, and I was just like, oh God, I'm never going to work again. And I was really sad about it. And so I had Ulysses, which was wonderful. But then I realised that all the baby groups that you go to are just, God, they're boring. Mind-numbingly boring. I can remember being sat in this church hall doing I'm not going to say the name of the company because it's great that they exist and some people love that kind of stuff, singing songs, wasn't allowed a cup of tea in case you dropped it. The most exciting thing was a custard cream. And I just thought to myself, I remember going to the theatre, and I remember going to big festivals and doing big stages and having an amazing time. And why is it when we become a mum, suddenly, your expectations on your cultural life have to kind of go to being in a church hall with a custard cream? And I just thought, no, I'm not having it.
That's great. It reminds me of I was listening to a podcast a little while ago by this woman who was like a feminist in the 1970s, and one of the kind of the angles that 70s feminists had was that, like, as women or as humans, we're not just one thing, we're just so kind of like multi-dimensional. And I think that's something that can happen when you become a mum, is that it feels like all of that complexity can get kind of squeezed out of you, and then you become just this one thing. Whereas actually, in order to thrive as a human, we need to kind of acknowledge that we're well-rounded people, and we're intellectual, and we're artists, and like sometimes we're in this space of being really loving, and other times we're really grumpy, and all of it is like part of who we are. And it's also very kind of enriching to acknowledge that we are all of those things.
Completely. I can remember in my 20s and thinking that people who were mothers were different from me. They were just empathetic, caring people who wanted to have children, whereas I was a career woman. And I wish I could go back to that 20-something Angie Belcher and slap her around the face, to be honest with you, for her ignorance. And so now I had my baby quite late in life, really, at 42. And obviously you have a child and you realize you still have lots to give. You still have your creativity, you still have your skill set. In fact, I think my skill set has improved after having to juggle parenthood and all the things that I do anyway. And I think society kind of just decides that, oh, you've got a child now, so therefore you're no longer of any use to the capitalist society, and so therefore you can just be in your box. So we haven't created anything amazing for mums. And my aspiration with Aftermirth Comedy Club was to create a space whereby you could still enjoy the arts in the same way that you did before. because after sitting in at this church hall singing songs, I thought, this is great for the kids, but actually I've just been through this amazing experience, which for some women might have been amazing, might have been traumatic, and we don't get a space to talk about it and actually kind of go, whoa, let's express what happened, over the 9 months that you were carrying another human being in your belly, the 3 days you had in undescribable pain, and this most amazing thing when you had a baby. Let's sit down and talk about it. And so with Aftermirth Comedy Club, the idea was to not only create a cultural event that is the same standard that you would go to beforehand, but also explore this concept of what I call the dark side of motherhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. And I think it's like, if we don't get to be the fullest expression of ourselves, like if we're in an environment where we feel like we've got to be polite and somewhat kind of suppress who we are, then we don't really have so much value to give to our children, because actually what they need from us is our presence. And something that I've kind of learned is that doing something very simple with your child, but actually being fully there with them, is much better than doing something, kind of complicated or faffy with them, but kind of being a little bit absent, so it's kind of like actually being there is better than kind of acting the role of what you think a good mum should look like. Because I thought I'd be the sort of mum that kind of made the perfect birthday cake and did all of that stuff, and actually I'm just too busy and too knackered. but some of the best times I've had with my son is actually, it's kind of been inspired by I did one of your workshops last year, which I really loved, and doing workshops like that, or improv workshops, and kind of using those games with my son. And sometimes it just looks like saying silly words to each other, but if all you're doing is saying silly words to each other, but you're both loving it, then I think that's kind of it's much better than doing what we think we should be doing, I think.
Yeah, and motherhood is full of amazing things, and parenthood in general. I suppose what I want to do with Aftermirth is kind of just explore also, there's days when you feel terrible, there's days when actually the relentlessness of parenting really gets to you, there's days when you've got a million things to think about and actually you could just do without your child being around for a while, and there's times when you kind of just think you just want to murder them, and all these horrible things. And with my stand-ups at Aftermirth, so just to explain, Aftermirth is a normal standard comedy club. So I say to my comedians, don't censor yourself, because you're doing an injustice to this audience if you censor yourself. So it's kind of normal stuff, it's sweary, it's mature content. The idea being, and I often use stand-ups that are parents themselves, to be honest with you, the idea being that actually talking about the crap days as well as the amazing woo days, just talking about the days where it's really tough, I think is important for parents, because otherwise we get fed via social media this idea that everything's all amazing when you're a mummy. It's like, actually some days are really crappy, and just admitting to that.
Yeah, I like the name Aftermirth, because that implies like a bit of a mess kind of thing, but and I like that as a kind of metaphor for parenthood, but I guess there's a lot of nutrients in kind of afterbirth as well, isn't there? So it's kind of both things.
There is.
Yeah, like being with the kind of mess, it doesn't look how it's supposed to look, but somehow there's genuine kind of nourishment there. And actually, if we can face the untidiness of being a parent, but actually find the guts and the resilience to meet it and overcome it, I feel like that's kind of what it's all about, really. And that life isn't this kind of perfect pre-packaged thing. It's weird and it's messy and it's nuts kind of thing, and sort of, yeah. So I've just written a book which is about my experiences in the circus plus my experiences as a parent, and I feel like what I want to encourage people to do is sort of, yeah, find the emotional resilience to be able to meet those challenges, because ultimately that's.
I've been taking Ulysses to circus skills sessions on a Sunday. You'd be pleased to know. Well, before cool. Obviously all this happened.
Yeah, I've started running sessions, like I guess in a similar vein to what you're offering. I do circus workshops where adults and children can learn together, because I feel like there's a lot of stuff where you take your kid along and they do something cool and you just sit and watch kind of thing. And so I think it's great to run stuff where you can get involved with your child, and especially something really fun like circus. So,
Oh, great. What's that called then, Nina?
Well, my Facebook page is called Journey into Parenting, so I just advertise it on there. But it's kind of, because of the COVID situation, I'm unclear when I'm going to be able to restart that, unfortunately. Yeah. So are you doing any online stuff at the moment? In terms of
I've paid to kind of do some little bits of writing and a few films. I'm doing my first online comedy gig on Monday. I've been creating some films for Culture Western, which is quite an oxymoron, isn't it? And creating some stuff for Mothers for Mothers. Yesterday I did my alternative bedtime story. I've created some stuff for schools with my poetry hat as well, to my poet. So little bits and pieces, really. And I'm hoping that Aftermirth will bring something soon when I've got my head around it.
Yeah, that sounds really fab and really vibrant. So I'll do a transcript of the talk, and I'll put links to all of Angie's work in the links below as well. But yeah, it's been really fab to talk to you. Thank you.
Lush. Thanks, Nina.
Cheers. Okay, bye.
Bye.